It's been 10 years since that fateful day in September 2001, and all of our National Guard in North Dakota have made an incredible commitment since then to defending our country in the global war on terror. We know that 1,800 airmen and 3,800 soldiers have made the commitment to defend us in the two wars that we have initiated since then. Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan begun in October of 2001, and Operation Iraqi Freedom, which was begun in 2003. Since that time, we have seen 12 North Dakota Guardsmen go down in their line of duty. Another 12 have had connections to North Dakota, and we memorialize them in a special memorial outside of Frayne Barracks every year. This commitment is one of the greatest in the nation. North Dakota is 4 times the national average in the military commitment of our citizens. We also have a special need to thank the families and the employers of our Guardsmen. They make a sacrifice that is just as great. Spouses of Guardsmen have served just as their own spouses in the war itself. They take care of families alone. Children celebrate their birthdays and holidays on their own. Parents of Guardsmen pick up the obligations of their families. This entire commitment is something that we are so proud of in North Dakota, and we know that today every single enlisted Guardsman has become a member during a period of war of the National Guard force. Thank you to all of the families and all of the Guardsmen who have made this incredible sacrifice for us in North Dakota to keep our freedom, to keep our safety, keep our security. God bless all of you, and God bless North Dakota.
Over the past decade, our nation has been engaged in the global war on terrorism. The tragic attacks on September 11th, 2001 have not only changed our nation forever, but have caused our National Guard to undergo the most dramatic transformation in its history. No longer a strategic reserve, the North Dakota National Guard has proven to be an important partner with the active duty forces and other reserve components in the defense of our homeland. So far, our Guard has mobilized nearly 3,800 soldiers and more than 1,800 airmen in support of the global war on terrorism, serving in a multitude of missions on our homeland and taking the fight to the terrorists in Iraq and Afghanistan. In the last 10 years, our Air Guard has retired their F-16 fighter jets, and our Army Guard has transformed to modular units. Our soldiers have written the doctrine on trailblazing, searching for and disabling IEDs, saving the lives of thousands of friendly forces. Our happy hooligans are operating remotely piloted aircraft and are protecting the missile fields at the Minot Air Force Base, missions unheard of just a few years ago. These are just a few of the examples of how our Guard has changed and assumed important new missions in defense of our nation, state, and communities in the years since the 9/11 attacks. Defending the homeland has come at a high price. In addition to our wounded warriors, we will always remember the 12 North Dakota Guardsmen that were killed in the global war on terrorism while serving our nation. To help ensure that we will never forget them or their sacrifice, we dedicated the memorial to the fallen in the global war on terrorism on September 11th, 2009. This joint project between the City of Bismarck and the North Dakota National Guard is located at Frayne Barracks and was built by the generous donations of hundreds of individuals and businesses. It properly honors all 24 North Dakotans that have paid the ultimate sacrifice during our nation's struggle against terrorism. The video you're about to watch is the story of the efforts, the transformation, and the actions of our Guard in the decades since the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001. It's your story, and it must be told time and time again. Thank you for all that you have done for your communities, your state, and your nation.
The state's Emergency Operations Center was immediately put on alert. The North Dakota National Guard was activated to assist in the protection of state facilities and resources, as well as all our citizens. In response to a directive from Washington, the Guard was elevated to its highest stage of alert, THREATCOM Delta.
This week's events have witnessed events in this country that for many of us represent our worst nightmare. As the commander of your happy hooligans, I can assure you that everything is being done to make sure that our force is operationally capable to accomplish our assigned mission. Our mission requires that we prepare our force to ensure that air defense and sovereignty of U.S. airspace is maintained. To that end, we have fighters on immediate alert, both here at Fargo as well as on the East Coast.
Today, I want to express our nation's gratitude to the Air Guard's 119th Fighter Wing, whose F-16s defended the skies over Washington that morning, and to the Air National Guard's 102nd Fighter Wing, whose F-15s rose to the defense of New York City. In a time of great peril and uncertainty, you were America's first line of defense, and we'll never forget it.
They give the American public confidence. They give them confidence that they're safe and secure. Give them confidence that we're ready to respond. We're prepared to deter, prevent, defeat an enemy.
They only let so many in at a time because they are clearing spaces. There's only so much real estate there for clearing out minefields and stuff. At first, there were civilians actually more or less on the base, but we had Air Force had their own compound, you know, secured. So you'd walk down out of the Air Force compound and go somewhere, and there'd be Afghanistan citizens trying to sell you stuff like knives and, you know, bayonets, and yeah, kids on bikes with the, you know, AK-47 strapped to their back. And the toughest part, I would say, that Afghanistan was the dust storms. That was when they'd come up, and they'd actually bring in some of the wounded there to the hospital. The Taliban had captured, and they had a prison on base where to interrogate them and whatnot. All in all, it wasn't too bad. You know, once you get in a groove of things, whatnot.
checking IDs. Everybody that comes in the base, you check their IDs. So, and random searches of the contractors that come in. We search every vehicle larger than a single axle. So any semi that comes on base, we search, and then write out passes for vehicles that don't have registrations on them.
Started out and we built a bypass to the perimeter road, which just skirts the berms over here. We laid down the horizontal work as far as the gravel and everything, and then a unit out of Florida, 269, did the asphalt. While we were doing that, Charlie Company built a berm over there, and they created a parking lot for the commercial vehicles coming in. The function of the berms is when they get the civilian traffic in here, if somebody did happen to slip by with some kind of an explosive device, they're enclosed. So they search, so that's another search area in here also. The berms took quite a bit of work. We had to bring our scrapers up from Kuwait to do that. Yeah, we compacted them and everything. Actually, the berms were a big project.
Humanitarian type mission. It was called Task Force Neighborhood. And what that consisted of was going out into the community of Baghdad and rendering assistance to the local populace. We went and repaired schools and hospitals, police stations, removed a lot of debris, UXO, that type of thing from the streets of Baghdad.
We did a bridge mission for the 101st. We were up there and supported them. We fixed up an MGB for them. And of course, the bridging mission we just finished was a huge highlight for us.
Once we got into Iraq a couple times, we established our camp. There was a mission that was called upon for boat operators. At that time, we went to, a selected few of us went to our Ramadi, Al Fallujah area and patrolled the Euphrates. Mission originally was supposed to happen or last for about 14 days. It ended up lasting a little over 3.5 months.
Well, it started out, Sergeant Walker can elaborate better, but we were supposed to be there 2 weeks.
Yeah, they said 10 to 14 days. I was there almost 4 months. They saw boats and they said they immediately thought patrols. They don't understand they're called resurrection boats for a reason. They're not patrol boats. But they worked. And they didn't give us any. They just took us up there. Started out with 2 boats, 8 people, something like that. And they said you're going to patrol this river, and it was a completely non-doctrinal mission. We had no idea what we were going to do. And I thought I'd get information when I got up there, but they basically just said start patrolling, you know. And how long are you going to be here? What are you going to do? I'm like, I have no idea. I hope you guys can answer that for me. And that was under the 3rd ACR, but it turned out to work out pretty well.
So that concept, I think, is always there in the back of most readiness folks' mind, that we're not really fully employed until we do go overseas, and especially if something happens. You know, traditionally the career field is disaster response force or disaster preparedness. So we're there to what extent we're capable of fulfilling our mission, but we're supposed to be there when the balloon goes up and lots of stuff is happening in a very bad way.
I still remember our first night we were there, when we were probably up for 2 or 3 days straight. It sure seemed like it. And then we lost all our gear, lost our weapons. Everything was taken by customs and this and that.
We need those weapons to where we're going. We know we're going to Baghdad. We know the stories. We've heard the stories.
And we're all sleeping in our tent our first night there, and it was like a half hour after we're sleeping, there was a big firefight down by Checkpoint 6 with mortars and rockets and all that. And it was something else, and we're just like, what did we get ourselves into? 4-person patrol. Usually one individual is armed with an M203, another individual will be armed with a M249 saw, or else a M60, or else M240, and then you have your assistant AG, and he's armed with an M16 also. And then as area supervisor, you just, usually they break the areas off in sectors, and we had Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta. So then one night you'd get a certain sector, like Alpha Sector, and then you'd be responsible for all the troops and all the activities and all that in there, and then I'd report directly to the flight sergeant.
I worked at the VCC. I did a lot of searching, I did a lot of vehicle searching, things like that.
It really made me feel good about what we're doing over there was when we got to do our flyaway. I don't know if I can give the locations, but we flew them into Balad, and they were new Iraqi military cadets, and they basically wanted to take their picture with my camera just for me to have. I mean, they were just overwhelmed and happy to be there, and they even knew that, I mean, when we're flying in, I don't know if we're being shot or not, but we're popping flares, and it's not your normal C-130 ride, and even then it was well worth it for them. And for myself now that I'm here.
The 141's primary role and mission is assured mobility.
We went up and down the main supply routes and checked for roadside bombs.
We were the ones that were out there on the roadway putting ourselves in harm's way to ensure that American forces, coalition forces, Iraqi citizens can move up and down the road.
It's patrolling the main supply routes and alternate supply routes to look for IEDs, mines, and other explosive devices so that those roadways are free of movement for the combat and the logistics patrols that need to move through the area.
141 engineers have done just a tremendous job in ensuring our routes are clear. They go out every day, day and night, and conduct route clearance operations, looking for IEDs, looking for insurgents, looking for ambush sites along our major routes.
Got there for probably the first 2 months. We were living with the Iraqis. We'd go with them, we'd live with them, and we were doing like a security for people who go out and talk to the Iraqi people, move cars and whatnot. That's what we did for the first 2 months, and then from February to about July, we trained the Iraqi army on basic training missions on up, and then we moved up into platoon and company level leadership in the battalion. After that, we started doing route clearance. Is what I ended up doing last during all the elections and all that.
As a whole, they're way better off than they were when we started working with them. You know, they're getting better every day.
We did route clearance. We cleared roads south of Alice Anaconda and on the main MSR Tampa and then back up.
I cleared the roads in Iraq on roadside bombs.
Usually on the route clearance patrols,
we went out and patrolled the roads searching for IEDs.
The 141 Battalion, they were pretty much the pioneers of doing route clearance trailblazing mission over there. They were coined the Trailblazers. We still called it Operation Trailblazer, but everybody else pretty much, it was just named route clearance. You guys are route clearances, which is what we did. It changed drastically over the course of the year. We started out clearing 250 to 300 kilometers long.
At the very beginning, our route was a lot different than it was at the end. We kind of did almost every major route. It was in our area of operation, as well as Dunn-Tajik.
Probably one of the most respected missions in that theater of operations, I think. We dealt with a lot of infantry guys and armor guys and artillery guys and this and that. Once they knew what we were doing there in their AO, they always go, man, I wouldn't want to be you guys. They said that to us a lot. And the way we kind of looked at it, and we had convoys running up and down the road, and that was our job, was to make sure that the route was clear for the convoys so that the supplies and logistics could move freely from base to base so guys could get the equipment that they needed.
General support for NATO and U.S. forces that were on the ground.
Our mission was Enduring Mission 3, and it was the last U.S. overt task force to actively assist NATO in apprehending those persons indicted for war crimes in Bosnia-Herzegovina.
More of a peacekeeping force. Trying to keep from the fighting is obviously the thing, is what we were trying to do. Our mission, we flew a lot. Like I say, we were a presence there every day. We usually had 2 flights flying.
I mean, they are very pleased that we are here, and especially when we get to go downtown on passes and make some visits into town in Bosnia and that. They see the flag, they come up to us, they grab us, they hug us, they're just happy to see us here.
For 3 months, we basically set up HESCOs continuously, every day. HESCOs are a basket type of cloth liner, and they fold up like an accordion, and you just unfold them, pull them out. They can take a direct hit from a mortar.
The main aspect of the machine was for surveillance around the perimeter of the fob and also the outlying areas. We scanned on anything that we figured was suspicious with the camera, and anything that was suspicious we always passed up to the battle captain for the talk.
The J-Lens, all it does is provide surveillance and provide surveillance for the fob. Usually we keep an eye out for anything going on, either outside the wire, inside the wire.
To Bagram Air Base, and originally we were supposed to be doing checkpoint security at Bagram, but that never happened. We ended up going out on the borders of Afghanistan to train the ABP and the ANP, or the Afghan Border Police and the Afghan National Police, on PTT, or police tactical training. and they split our battery, our 152-man battery, up from the southernmost parts down in Spin Boldak all the way up to the northernmost parts up in the Nuristan province and the Fob Nare, and we had units or platoons in between, so it was quite a different mission.
I thought the mission was actually a good one. You know, we were supposed to train and mentor the Afghan border police, and then later on in the year the Afghan National Police as we moved to the interior. We were supposed to interdict smuggling routes in the Hindu Kush and other traveling points, donkey trails across the border from Pakistan. Pretty good mission in reality, but it was sort of like the Wild West out there. You know, every day was an adventure, that's for sure.
I was assigned to the Personal Security Coordination Center, and they assigned me to the Prime Minister right away, which at the time was Dr. Ibrahim Jafari. He needed to go to his office one day. Our military escort were held up by a roadside bomb, so they were late getting to his house. The fate of the country rests in the top five, you know, the big five. And if they didn't get to work, that meant they weren't going to make progress that day. So it was a pretty big deal that he didn't get to his office. And so we decided at least a letter of apology, you know, and the sooner the better. And we thought we would just hand it to his, you know, second in command or maybe his PSD or something and be on our way. And not much was said, but they led us into his residence. And there is Dr. Ibrahim Jafari with his Chief of Staff, Dr. Tamimi, and it's just me and my boss, Colonel David Teal. He accepted our apology and asked if we could stay for dinner. It was almost like a dream. You know, we're sitting there and, you know, poolside and just a starry night, and yet you could hear gunfire in the distance, you know, and it reminded you that you're in Baghdad.
Up in Atlanta, it wasn't media engagement, but it was actually taking all the video throughout, not even just our unit, but other units that were sending back video, and they would screen it actually, and then put it into files down there on the Divots Hub. And the Divots Hub has a website that people could go in and pull stuff off, and also photos, any photographs that they got. And this was, I think it picked up all the different MPADs and public affairs work that was being done in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Well, when we left for, I left with the first group, the first rotation over to Qatar. There were, I believe, 6 of us. And I was basically a media engagement team member, and our mission as media engagement team members is to find service members in theater and connect them with civilian media back in the U.S. for interviews, whether it was TV, radio, or newspaper. And my thoughts on that overall mission were good. I mean, it was a good way to connect service members with their family and more or less get the word back. And you found a lot of times, at least the hometown newspapers were really enthusiastic about talking to, you know, a soldier, a local soldier. Sometimes you're met with, you know, the bigger media. It was often a harder sell. The second part of the deployment, I ended up in Tampa, Florida, and we're working for Central Command there on MacDill Air Force Base. And I was part of the blogging team, which was kind of innovative at the time. I'm not sure, I don't know if it was the first team that had dealt with social media, new media and blogs, but definitely had to be one of the first. And what we did was more or less some of that marketing, again, kind of facilitated interviews between service members and bloggers, which was, you know, just a new platform, a new medium to get these types of interviews out. More than that, we had U.S. Central Command newsletter, and it was stories that were done by public affairs offices throughout the AOR and CENTCOM, and just a compilation of those good stories about Reconstruction and those types of things, and we would solicit bloggers that may be interested in receiving that kind of information, linking to it, you know, sending it out further. So definitely a bigger potential audience to get that message out, and I found that very valuable, especially you know, coming back and working for North Dakota National Guard full time, and trying to figure out ways how to use social media to further that message.
This is Air Force Television News with Technical Sergeant David Pullen.
More than 4 months after the September 11th terrorist attacks, the Air Force is still playing an active role in the war on terrorism. One aspect of that war is Noble Eagle, protecting the skies over the United States. The majority of that protection is provided by units of the Air National Guard. In many cases, people and equipment operating a long way from home. Staff Sergeant Lee Bellinger has one example in Virginia.
In an alert hangar on Langley Air Force Base, an F-16 pilot goes through her pre-flight check. Today, her mission will take her over the nation's capital. These combat air patrols by the North Dakota Air National Guard have taken on new importance since September 11th. 2 of their F-16s were the first to secure the airspace over Washington, D.C. following the terrorist attack on the Pentagon.
Doing the air sovereignty business, we've always felt that with the North Dakota Guard that's the most important thing that the military should be doing is that protection of our own resources within the United States.
The pilots know what is on the line as well. They know on any given mission, they could be given the order to engage a threat. It's a time Beamer and others like him hope never comes. Staff Sergeant Lee Bellinger, Air Force News, Langley Air Force Base, Virginia.